Move to Part B, the City of Canning, or the first of the City of Canning items. I'm seeking a declaration of view consideration from members. Have you all read the material before you today? You could indicate. Thank you. Yes. Thank you. Are there any disclosures of interest?
Not from me, Chair. Mayor Hall.
Thank you very much.
Not from me either, Councillor Kunza.
Thank you, Councillor Kunza. We'll move on to the item, or the first item, 3.1, which is the proposed residential building in Alexandra Place. We have some presenters, so hand it over to Regan Cake and Ingrid Van Dawson, if you'd like to do your presentation, and then once you've both done your bit, we'll go to questions. Okay, thank you, Regan.
Right, I'll speak first and I'll lead into Ingrid's presentation. Firstly, we just want to express our support for the officer's recommendation of approval and all of the pros and conditions. We aren't seeking sort of any changes or modifications to that recommendation sort of as it sits in the RAR. Before actually lodging the development application, we did a bit of work with the city around the proposal and specifically the land use. There were some concerns or matters to work through with regard to the appropriate land use classification, because the planning framework sort of doesn't really have a position where social housing or community housing fits from a land use perspective. So there was some legal advice obtained, some back and forth with the city, and we got to a point where both the built form and then the operational characteristics of the development itself sort of lended itself to that residential building land use classification, which is what was ultimately lodged with the city. The proposal itself is 7 individual self-contained rooms as part of a larger holistic development. They've been architecturally designed by Nick Brunston Architects in order to be both low cost in construction, but also low cost in operational characteristics, and sort of sustainability through the design will reduce the reliance on artificial heating and cooling and all that sort of stuff to make sure that the occupants are comfortable. The development itself, and Ingrid will touch on this in a bit more detail, but it will also have light touch services from Uniting WA as part of the overall development, which will enable the occupants to access services provided by Uniting WA to assist them in maintaining occupancy as part of the development, and also a transition ideally into more permanent sort of housing solutions within the broader housing continuum. As far as compliance with the planning framework, this has been assessed in great detail within the city's RAR reports. I won't go into any great detail on that, other than to say that the R codes themselves and picking and choosing what provisions apply, I guess, to a residential building land use is somewhat challenging, given many of the provisions will sort of cater to your group dwelling, single house, multiple dwelling land use classifications. I think the city's approach and the one they've taken is broadly consistent with a similar matter we had considered at the Metro Outer last week, in that you sort of use the provisions to assess the impact of the development on adjoining properties and everything like that, which I think makes the most sense. And as far as compliance is concerned, that's dealt with in the RAR. Any variations have been appropriately justified and everything. So the development itself, we feel, is great for the site and great for the broader community. And I think in the current housing climate, it's critical. It's a segment of the community that really misses out, I think. And I mean, Ingrid will probably touch on that in a little bit more. So probably an opportune time to hand over to yourself, Ingrid, and go through a bit about Uniting WA.
Thanks, Regan, and morning panel members. Thanks for having me today. So my name's Ingrid Van Dawson. I'm project manager at Uniting WA. So a little bit about Uniting. We're a leading community housing provider and community service provider in WA. We offer homelessness services, disability services, reintegration, family and children services, and look after thousands of vulnerable people in our community every day. So this proposal in Bentley forms part of Uniting's Aspirations Housing project, which was, we have another site up in Garraween, which, as Regan mentioned, we got approval for last week at the Metro Outer DAP. And this concept came together when Uniting identified a gap in the housing continuum, essentially. So what we do, we provide a range of different supportive housing models, from crisis accommodation, transitional accommodation for people who are formerly homeless, as well as permanent accommodation for a range of people. But what we identified with particularly people who are formerly homeless is there's a real gap between transitional, which is sort of 9 to 12 months, and people coming off the street or from crisis accommodation and then going into permanent housing, such as generally, I guess, Department of Communities housing, if they can get a spot. Just some people we've identified really need ongoing support. So these are vulnerable members of our community, and that's what Uniting specialises in. So we've developed this model as it is a permanent housing, as in 6 months plus. People can stay as long as they need. They can move on to independent housing, Department of Communities if they wish, but for as long as they need the support and there's a bed there, they will be welcome to stay. So the support model we'll be providing to these, and sorry, just to note, the design itself it will be a purpose-built facility for these people. So the self-contained, it is a residential building, and it will be a community housing facility with our operational support for the people offered. But it was designed for self-contained accommodation. Just that is what they need. That gives them the best opportunity to build their independent living skills and give them dignity, privacy, and safety, security, and all those things as they transition through the housing continuum. In terms of our operational model, it is detailed in our operations management plan, which is included in the RAR. But yeah, we will have they will have case management over them. They'll be given opportunities for training, further training, education, and job opportunities. They'll have a minimum of a weekly visit from their support worker, as well as 24/7 on-call support if they need anything. The other thing Uniting offer, it's actually a two-part sort of operational model, in that we do the property management and tenancy management as well as a different part of our organisation, and yeah, we provide a supportive landlord model as well. So it's just all about supporting the people. And before I finish, I just want to touch on, there were some objections received to this proposal in the community. As you know, it's a social housing. There's always going to be a little bit of fear and uncertainty around that, but I can assure you, I've lived next to social housing, and one of the issues is the people aren't given the support they need. So when you're just putting vulnerable people into the community, normal Department of Communities housing, there's going to be issues. I can honestly, hand on heart, tell you, Uniting provide that support and look after our people. We have existing facilities in Fremantle and Perth, even our crisis accommodation, where, yeah, the community don't even know we're there, and the ones that do, they're friends with neighbours. The city, there's never complaints. It is all about the people, and when they have the support they need, you don't have those issues. So they do integrate well into the community, and yeah, that's what Uniting is about. And yeah, also where we have had issues at our crisis accommodation, which is a bit more complex than the people that will be living here, we've worked with the community and all stakeholders and got a great outcome, and everyone's friends, and they're coming to morning tea and everything now. So yeah, anyway, just wanted to give you some comfort around what the housing will be. Also just to note, there will be a minimum 50-year lease over it. The house, it's owned by the property is owned by the church, and it will be funded by Department of Communities, or have funding which also requires it to be used for social housing purposes, this site. So it won't be on sold, subdivided or anything. It's in perpetuity that this asset will remain in church and hands and Uniting management. So yeah, that's all from me. Thank you for your consideration.
Thanks, Ingrid. Thanks, Regan. Questions of presenters from panel members? Yes, Mayor Hall.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, I just wanted to ask the presenters what the cohort was being targeted for the transition. I was told by staff that the cohort targeted for this ex-prisoners. There are people transitioning from custodial sentences into the community, and I don't necessarily disagree with that need, but I just wanted to know, is that the cohort being targeted?
Thank you for your question. I can answer that. So this model housing, it will be primarily people that are formerly homeless coming from our transitional facilities. This property does have a trust over it with the church that requires us to provide a minimum of one bed for a reintegration participant, which is someone that's coming from prison. But just to give you some comfort around that, the house has that trust now, and the occupants in there for as long as I've known. It's the same cohort, so there's actually no change to the existing. Yeah, so the existing house is a reintegration property, and we have gentlemen in there at the moment that we support, and I understand there's no issues in the community or anything. And again, our participants, that they get the support they need, and which enable them to integrate in the community. But yes, just to clarify, that's who we anticipate: 6 people likely formerly homeless and 1 participant to be a reintegration participant.
Thank you.
Yes, through you, Chair. I have no issue with that. In fact, if it was an application for a drug rehabilitation centre, I would support that as well, as long as it complies with planning. My issue is with the consultation around the DA, that there's been no consultation with local residents that actually specifically tells them and fully informs them that this will be a reintegration premises used by people transitioning out of custodial sentences. Now, I don't have any issue with that personally, but I think that this JDAP panel, this DAP panel, would bear the brunt of public backlash if it is found later on by those residents who have been consulted that that is the intent, and it was never shared with them during the consultation process. And I've asked the same question of our own staff. I have.
What's your question? This is question time.
Yeah, my question would be why wasn't that actually revealed to those people involved in the consultation process at any time? Those words, reintegration and transitioning from custodial, why weren't people informed?
Thank you for your question. I think, to be honest, and we do talk about this at Uniting, it's very sensitive and people have a right to privacy. And in our view, yeah, we would not object to that, but obviously we're just managing fears in the community. But as I said, there's actually no change to the use. Like, the people in there now are reintegrating from prison, and we've not had to consult the community. And as far as I know, there's no issues, but I can tell you we are more than happy to consult the community with other applications we have where we thought it would be an issue. I guess in this one, we just thought we just don't want to generate fear. We're happy to meet with community. Certainly if council receive any complaints or concerns or contact about this development, happy to meet with them and give them that reassurance. It'll be in our operational management plan. There'll be contact details that we can give, direct phone numbers to neighbours that they can contact us. There'll be 24/7 or security or our support staff to come and fix the problem, essentially, if there is one. We don't shy away from the community. As I said, we have existing facilities that we work closely with the community and consult with them to address any issues. That the residents will be subject to residential tenancy agreements, which we do uphold. And, there's a breach. If there's any issues, they will be moved on. We're not anticipating any issues from the people here, given where they're coming from for this, and that will be housed at this property. Again, they'll be coming from transitional or part of case management. They're given capacity building skills to help them live independently by the time they get to this property. Also, the people living there go through a referral process. So this is not just anyone that needs a bed gets a bed here. It's a referral process with case management workers looking closely at who is suitable for living in this location. Obviously, there's legislation around people exiting prison that have certain histories, not living in near schools, but we would not put them in a established residential area. If there is a referral process, we review and see who would be suitable for this location. So I can assure you, And very happy to consult with the community at any time. And if any issues come up with council, we're very happy to meet and engage, and we have always done that in the past. So I'd like to, apologies that we weren't up front again. It is, or that's not, I guess, my decision, but from a Uniting perspective, it is sensitive sort of information. We don't like to sort of say these people are living there. Like they have a right to privacy, and and to be honest, we've not had any issues with anyone living at that house or others that I know of. In terms of our reintegration program, we do offer a good support that helps these people.
And I think just to briefly add to that, I think presently it's 1 of 1, and as part of this development it's going to be 1 of 7. It's quite a minor aspect of the actual proposed development. So it's not as if it's holistically and only catered for people reintegrating out of prison. It's mostly homeless with one bed for someone who's reintegrating.
Further questions, Mayor Hall?
Just my final question would be, does the Uniting Church believe that the sensitivity and privacy of those people is more important than transparency and honesty in the development application process? I'm wondering why you're saying that you're happy to consult with everybody and be fully frank about it, but you had your opportunity and you chose not to do that. So I'm just wondering, is that the position of the Uniting Church?
Not at all. And just to clarify, Uniting Church are the landowners, and I work at Uniting WA, which we're the proponent. We provide this service. So this is actually, the development application is with Uniting WA, not the church, just to clarify. We're an agency of the church, but we operate quite separately. So I'd just like to remove that tie. No, certainly not a position of the church or anyone to hide this information. I guess going through a DA process, we're all learning. And we did engage with the city early and council and elected members, and we didn't do, I guess, individual engagement. We're going through the development application. We understood it went through an advertising and consultation process as required. So, and again, in our submission and response to the city post-advertising, we did confirm we're happy to meet with anyone and address anything as required, but I guess it's a bit of a learning process for us, and weren't aware that we were required to meet with anyone.
Further questions?
Prior.
No further question. I'm just disappointed by the response. Thank you.
Further questions from panel members? No? All right, thank you very much for that. Go to the officers now. Do you want to make any statements, or we'll just go straight to questions? Want to address Mayor Hall's?
Just in relation to Mayor Hall's concerns from the city's point of view, the city assessed it based on the land use itself for a residential building. So we wouldn't have taken into the concerns the individual patrons that would be living in that facility. So as a residential building is a permitted land use within the residential zone, that's how we viewed it in a planning assessment terms, and then obviously assessed the built form in accordance with the R codes and specifically group dwellings, as I think Regan had mentioned previously. So,
questions of the officers? Mayor Hall. Questions of the officers? Mayor Hall, did you have any questions?
None from me.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, yes, Brian.
I've got one minor one. The proposed conditions, obviously we want them to be clear and precise and easily interpreted. Condition 19, I just felt may need further clarification. It's to do with, it says unless otherwise approved, no walls, fences, letterbox or structures above 0.75 metres in height being constructed within the 1.5 metre width times 1.5 metre width triangular area. I'm just wondering if there may be a good understanding from others, but in the event that some other people try and interpret that, I'm not sure whether that is clear where that is and what that is.
Yes, so just for clarification, that relates to the proposed crossover as part of the development itself, and so that is a deemed to comply requirement under the residential design codes volume 1 for site lengths itself. So essentially the city's just reiterating that if they're going to have any fencing, it just needs to meet that deemed to comply standards.
I'm not questioning the need for it.
Yeah.
I'm just questioning whether a description of a 1.5 by 1.5 metre a triangular area is clear. Where, I don't know, personally, I don't know where that is or what that is.
Well, we did provide the conditions to the applicants prior,
Yeah.
and they had raised no issues with that particular condition. So they're aware of the requirement of the condition itself.
And if the panel members believe it's necessary, we're happy to accept modifications to that condition to clarify its intent.
Have you got any suggestions as to? It's just that I know there's an understanding, but these things last for a long time, and there may well be someone else trying to interpret what that might be.
Yeah, we could definitely reference the particular clause in the R codes.
Or is it a crossover, did you say?
It relates to
It's where the driveway meets the street, so
Yeah.
the front boundary.
Yes.
Could we add those words? Could we add those words if you might suggest the appropriate ones? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Condition 14 relates to the operational management plan and says that it has to be prepared and implemented thereafter for the life of the development. And yet then there's a advice note 8, which says it has to be revived every 12 months, or revised every 12 months. The advice note carries no weight, but it sounds like a condition. I'm just wondering, is it intended that it be revised every 12 months, or we just stick with the condition?
I think stick with the condition. The advice note was just there to, I suppose, from the proponent's point of view, to keep it relevant and updated, because obviously different patrons will be going through the facility as well. So if they need to update that plan, just to provide them with the feedback that they can update it every 12 months, and if needed, then update it from the city's perspective and lodge a new plan with the city to assess and approve as well.
Okay, thank you. Further questions?
Well, I suppose just to clarify that, thank you. Possibly within the operational management plan, there could be words that say this operational management plan will be reviewed and updated every 12 months, which would cover off the words in the advice note. Okay, so as long as the city can communicate that with the applicants, and there was I think an operational management plan submitted with the application anyway. So
I believe that's already in the operational management plan. If you go under section 15 of the draft operational management plan. So I guess the intent of the advice line was just to reaffirm that.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. No further questions of the officers? Okay, thanks, gentlemen. We'll move to the item. Recommendation for approval with conditions. Do I have a mover and seconder? Is there a mover for that? Councillor Mayor Hall. And a seconder? Yes, Lindsay Baxter, thank you. Mayor Hall.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, I speak in favour of the development. Despite the questioning of our guests, I do speak in favour of it. It's much needed in the area. It presents on a piece of land that has been underutilised for some time. I think it's a sensible proposal. I also think that generally speaking, the conditions placed on the development are also sensible. I do just want to clarify that I do believe that the whole process here, the consultation with any development, needs to be really transparent and genuine to make sure that the communities that are most affected by these developments are fully aware. And I don't think there's any issue with that. I mean, I just wish that United WA and the church had been upfront with the community. And whilst there might have been some initial backlash or criticism, I would have shouldered the blame of that as the mayor, and I would have been very willing to accept that. But people need to be fully informed, and so I would hope that the city's officers and also applicants in future would ensure that they are fully transparent and genuine in their consultation. But I speak in favour of it, and I can't wait to see it started. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mayor Hall. Lindsay.
Thank you. I also support the application. And I'd just like to say this isn't a criticism particularly coming from myself as a statutory planner, but this type of application shows how convoluted the planning system can be for something as simple as housing, when it's necessary to interpret several different somewhat conflicting clauses and provisions of a planning scheme, a strategic document and state planning policy to arrive at a positive outcome. The land is zoned urban in the MRS and residential in the local planning scheme with a prescribed high density of R80 to R100 due to its proximity to transport and other facilities. By virtue of Schedule C of the local planning scheme, the form of the development is actually excluded in favour of multiple dwellings. However, as the responsible authority report advocates, there is a need to differentiate between the use, that is residential building, and the form of the development, which is grouped dwellings, in order to assess it under the R codes and to take both of those matters into account. Thank you to the City of Canning officers for a well-written report in that regard and for navigating the way through the merits of the proposal. Accordingly, I'm comfortable and supportive with both the use and the development and the minor areas of discretion which need to be given to the proposal and thus its general compliance with the local planning scheme. It certainly complies with the relevant objectives of the residential zone and provides a much needed typology of housing for those in need. Just a general comment, as it appears to many local governments. In this case, it doesn't appear in the conditions, but a number of the advice notes refer variously to owner, developer, applicant, landowner, applicant or owner. It would actually be preferable for those terms to whoever the matters apply to be consistent, such as perhaps the overarching term of proponent, or most conditions and advice notes could actually be constructed to take out any reference to any sort of person and just stand on their own. I do foreshadow, possibly with the indulgence of the mover, a very minor change to condition 13. If I can elaborate on that, it is very minor. The sentence would read in full, prior to submission of an application for a building permit, and just take out that second word application and then the rest of the condition as it stands. So it's really just correcting a little bit of a grammatical, typographical there. Other than that, yes, I'm supportive of the application. Thank you.
Mayor Hall, as mover, are you happy to accept those minor changes to?
Yes, through you, Chair. I think they're a very minor amendment. I accept them. Yeah, no problem at all.
So that becomes the substantive recommendation or motion before us at the moment. Then, further speakers?
Just to clarify, that includes the condition 19.
I've got some wording for that here, if you want to read it.
Thank you.
It's just that one.
Shall I read this out?
Yes, thanks.
So this is quite a change from the one in there. Is that the full condition? Okay. It says where a driveway and or parking bay abuts a public street, associated walls, fences and or adjacent landscaping areas shall be constructed within 1.5 metres thereof or limited in height to 0.75 metres.
Okay.
That does the job. I'm quite comfortable, except that maybe there should be an A, or it shall be constructed.
All right.
Yeah.
So Brian, I think
yeah,
we'll move that as
an amendment.
As an amendment.
Yeah.
So you've changed recommending new wording.
Yeah.
Is there a seconder for that revised condition 19? Mayor Hall, thank you. Is there any discussion on that? Necessary. All right, I'll put the amendment. All in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Brian, the floor's still with you.
I would, as a general comment, I would just say that I do understand that this is a slightly difficult proposal to navigate through the planning framework. And it would be good if we could find ways of supporting community housing in a more straightforward way. But I do think it's a well-designed outcome, and I'm convinced that it will be well managed and maintained as described. So I'm supportive.
Thank you very much. Further speakers?
Chair,
Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, councillor. I can. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, I just wanted to say, look, I support the application and the development and the officer recommendation. I'm comfortable with the conditions posed by staff and the commentary provided by Uniting WA in response to the concerns raised by neighbouring residents. I had some concerns with the parking provided in terms of the 7 independent residential housing with only 4 parking bays and how they're configured. And I'm comfortable with what's been proposed with the revised management plan under condition 14 in terms of actual having some concrete response with respect to whether there'll be cars provided. I understand that people living there will have very low incomes to no incomes. However, if for whatever reason people over time did have vehicles, given the length of time that they're there, I felt that it might become a bit unsuitable given that they're at the end of a cul-de-sac. So I'm comfortable with what's been suggested through the revised operational management plan. And I think that what's been proposed by Uniting WA and their objectives in the area is very positive, and I hope that everything goes very well, and I support the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Kunze. Yes, I'm the same. I fully support the proposal. I agree with Lindsay Baxter that it's a bit of a convoluted way to get there. And when I first read it, I thought we're trying to manipulate the planning system to get there. But I realised afterwards that this is a proper way of dealing with it, and I'm quite happy with that, and particularly the outcome too. So congratulations to Uniting Care providers and to the officers in the report they prepared for us. So I'm happy to support it. Mayor Hall, back to you as the mover.
In the absence of any dissent, I don't see any need, Chair, to close. I accept what has been said. Thank you to the panel.
Thank you. I'll now put the motion as amended. All in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item 3.2. And we have a presenter in Claire McLean.
Start?
Yes, please. Thanks, Claire.
Good morning, presiding member and members of the panel. My name is Claire McLean. I am the planning consultant acting on behalf of Aegis Aged Care Group Proprietary Limited, and I'm presenting in relation to item 3.2. Aaron Grant of Montague Grant Architects is also here today should the panel have any questions relating to the built form design. Now, this development proposal seeks approval for a commercial laundry, which is designed to service the many Aegis facilities which are located around Perth. And the purpose of our presentation today is really simply to confirm our support for the officer recommendation and to make ourselves available to any questions you may have. Now, so just to briefly summarise the proposal, the laundry is to be constructed on the vacant portion of what is currently lot 414. This property is the subject of a WA Planning Commission subdivision approval. The current owner of lot 414 is in the process of finalising all the conditional requirements attached to that subdivision approval, and it's anticipated that the new titles will be released in the next couple of months. Now, the laundry is designed to sit within the surveyed lot boundaries of the approved lot 2, and that lot will have a primary frontage to Bannister Road to the north and have service entry by a shared driveway to the rear of the lot with approved lot 1 of that subdivision. And yes, that shared driveway is accessible via Vinnycombe Drive. Now, the development is classified as a permitted land use in the general industry zone of the city's local planning scheme at 42, and it is entirely compliant with the planning framework. There's no variations which are sought through this application. Now, Aegis is really keen to commence the development of this laundry, and as soon as all the approvals are obtained and the building permit is issued. So on that note, this is why we're here. We're here to make sure if we can answer any questions and we can gain your support by granting approval in accordance with the officer recommendation and those conditions attached to it. So thank you for the opportunity to present this morning, and yes, we welcome any questions.
Thank you, Claire. Questions of Claire or Adam from panel members? No? No. Right.
I have another minor one. It was to do with the access and servicing. I read all the material and I just wasn't 100% clear whether it's like a one-way system that comes from the south and then goes out to the north, or whether there will be service vehicles coming in from Bannister. Could you just clarify?
Yeah, so all the deliveries, all truck deliveries, laundry coming in will be off of Vinico to the rear. They're designed to go in. There's a turning bay, reverse in, offload the dirty, goes through the cycle, clean, goes back in the truck, and then returns out onto Vinico through the shared access driveway. The additional roller door to facing Bannister is only for emergency egress. That's not intended to be commercially used. So off Bannister it would only be the employee parking across the front, and the formed through the continuation of that bitumen run through the front there, parking base.
That's helpful, thank you.
Thank you for that. No further questions of the presenters? No, thank you. Move to the officers. Any comments or just taking questions?
Just can take questions.
Just take questions. Okay. Are there questions of the officers? Just in relation to condition 9, wondering if that could be split up into 2 conditions. One is prior submission of an application for building permit, and A and B is prior to the occupational use of the development.
Yeah, that's fine from city's perspective.
Okay then. I'll wait till we get to that. All right. Questions? No further questions? Yes, Mayor Hall.
Just one to the officers, and we had a briefing, Chair, just a day or so about this, and I probably should have raised it then. Just in relation to 9 that you just raised, and in respect to the previous matter we've just dealt with, I just wondered why some of the wording is not consistent in respect to maintaining that landscaping for the life of the development. We've used that liberally at times in others. Is that the intent here? And should it actually say that in 9? Is that the intent?
Through you, presiding member, yes, Mayor Hall, we do attach wording in the condition that any landscaping provided is maintained to the satisfaction of the city for the life of that development itself. So within the wording of this condition, it does say maintain landscaping thereafter, which would cover that from a planning compliance perspective.
So it's clear to the proponent that it's for the life of the development.
Yes, we did provide the conditions to the applicants prior, and they had no issues with that wording.
Thank you, Chair.
I think, Mayor Hall, the part B there talks about maintaining the landscaping thereafter, which is really means for the life of the development. Okay, no further questions. Thanks, gentlemen. We'll move on. We have an approval with conditions recommended. Is there a mover for the officer's recommendation?
I'm happy to move it, Chair.
Mayor Hall, thank you. And a seconder? Lindsay Baxter, thank you. Mayor Hall.
Thank you, Chair. We had the privilege of having a full and thorough briefing from our own officers just a few days ago in relation to this matter. I'm very comfortable with the development and the use for the property. I am very pleased in the investment in Canning Vale, and I support the application and the conditions that have been attached to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you. Really not too much to say. Support for the proposed development is warranted on the basis of it being a permitted use in the general industrial zone and pretty much fully compliant with the provisions of the local planning scheme and other requirements against which it's been assessed. So it's a fit for purpose building. In relation to some discussion that just occurred in relation to condition 9, I'm prepared to move the splitting of that condition and also a minor correction to existing condition 9. Existing condition 9, where it says prior to the submission of an application, if the word A could be submitted, inserted rather before the words building permit. And then perhaps splitting the condition where the words that start the applicant landowner shall, for that to become condition 10, and for the words to then follow on as part of condition 10. Clayton, did you want to handle that as a new motion or as part of the substantive?
No, I was just going to seek Mayor, well, actually I will. No, sorry, I'll deal with that as a separate amendment.
So we'll deal with that separate,
we'll deal with that now if you like. Or have you got?
I've got a couple of other things. Again, they're just typographical corrections really.
Let's run through those things.
Advice note 6, the word existing just needs to be changed to exist in the last sentence of that condition. And advice note 7 just needs an apostrophe at the word cities. Again, I would just make my comment about consistency in terminology in terms of the use of the words proponent, applicant, developer, because they could actually mean something entirely different in the legal sense, but that's really just a comment.
Okay, I'll seek a seconder for all of those changes, but I suppose the most significant one is the splitting of the conditions 9 and 10. Yes, Councillor, Mayor Hall. Thank you as a seconder.
Chair, just through you, Chair, just in that same item there, 6, I think on line 2 where it says to contract Jandakot Airport, that probably should be to contact Jandakot Airport, and I didn't pick that up myself on the first flush.
Yes, thank you. All right, now you're happy to second all those
yes,
changes? I am. Okay. I guess there's no further discussion on that. I'll put all those amendments in favour. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. The floor's still with you.
Nothing further to add. Thank you.
Nothing further speakers on this one. Nothing to say. No, I'm very supportive of it as well. It seems to fit well within the planning framework, so I'm happy to run with it as amended. Mayor Hall, back to you as the mover.
No, nothing further from me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll put the motion as amended. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. There's no Form 2 DAP applications, no SAT reconsiderations. In other business, there's I think we note the applications, any Supreme Court appeals. Is there any general business? No, thank you. I declare the meeting closed, excuse me, at 10:18. Thank you everyone for your attendance.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.